Why was everyone laughing at her before the first shot had even been fired? She didn't ask. She didn't argue. She just stood still, the fog curling around her boots, the voices carrying across the morning air like a cruel chorus. They called her a joke. They called her princess. They called her wasted ammunition. Lance Corporal Sarah Kowalski had heard it all before, and every word carried the same familiar weight, heavy but never crushing. At 28, she had grown accustomed to the quiet rhythm of disrespect, the way men smirked when she walked into a briefing, the way superiors assumed support staff when they saw her name on a roster, the way silence settled when she entered a room, followed by whispers once she left. It wasn't new, but that didn't make it painless. She stood alone by the range, eyes fixed on the mist rolling over Camp Pendleton's hills, neutral face, shoulders squared, no answer to the laughter, no hint of reaction. Only the subtle tightening around her eyes betrayed the fire smoldering beneath. Staff Sergeant Maxwell's voice cut through the air, exaggerated in its Texas drawl. He wanted everyone to hear. "Listen up, gentlemen. Division thinks we need diversity in our scout sniper support element, so they sent us someone from logistics. Maybe she can count our brass when we're done." The laughter hit harder than the words. A dozen Marines standing shoulder to shoulder, basking in their camaraderie, their brotherhood, their confidence. Maxwell smirked. "And just so everyone knows, I only had enough match-grade ammunition for the real shooters today. Sorry about that, princess." The crowd erupted again. Heads shook. Jokes passed between them like cigarettes. Sarah's name already written off before she'd touched a rifle. But there was something they didn't know. Something none of them knew. Sarah had been hand-loading precision rounds since she was 12 years old. Hours spent bent over a wooden bench in her grandfather's Montana workshop, carefully weighing powder to the tenth of a grain, trimming brass, seeding primers with the patience of a surgeon. She had lived and breathed consistency, precision, discipline. Her hands remembered every lesson. Her eyes remembered every target. And her father's voice, sometimes harsh, always unrelenting, still echoed inside her head. "If you can't trust your ammo, you can't trust your shot. Build your own. Earn it." She didn't need Maxwell's favor. She didn't need the armory's generosity. She had something better. Still standing 20 yards away from the men who laughed at her, she let her face stay calm. Because silence, she had learned, could cut deeper than any reply. Maxwell began handing out ammunition, his thick fingers tapping names on the roster. Each Marine received boxes of Lake City match-grade rounds, carefully packaged and gleaming in the morning light. The favored shooters accepted them like gifts. When Sarah had gone to draw hers that morning, Maxwell had tossed her a box of cheap ball ammo without even looking up. "Support personnel don't rate match ammo," he'd said. "Designated marksmen only. You can help pick up brass when the real shooters are done." His corporal had chuckled from behind the cage. Sarah had shown the authorization paper signed by Captain Torres himself. Maxwell had shrugged, called it an administrative error, and sent her away. "File a request through S4, he said. 2 days for approval. Too bad the qualification was today." And his smile, that smile that never touched his eyes, had told her it was never about paperwork at all. She carried the insult without showing it. She always did. Now, as the morning sun began to burn through the fog, she walked back to her government tissue SUV. Alone, boots crunching on gravel, the sound of laughter fading behind her. Inside, behind a steel lockbox, waited her answer. 40 rounds, hand-loaded with her own money, her own time, her own hands, each cartridge perfect, each one a silent rebuttal. She slid the key into the lock, the metal clicked open, and there they were. Brass polished to a soft glow, hollow points seated with perfect depth, Sierra Match Kings, Federal primers, every detail flawless. Her father would have been proud. The faintest smile crossed her lips, sharp and private, before fatting as quickly as it came. But then, a throat cleared behind her. She froze, turned slowly. Gunnery Sergeant Harrington, range safety officer, 68 years old, with pale blue eyes that seemed to see more than most men ever dared admit. A man who had worn the uniform since Korea, who had refused retirement 3 separate times. He studied the rounds in her hand. "Problem with your issued ammunition, Lance Corporal." Her spine straightened. "No, Gunny, just supplementing with my competition loads." His gaze lingered. "Sierra Match Kings, Lake City Brass, Federal Primers, hand loads." "Yes, Gunny, since I was 12. Something shifted in his weathered face. Not a smile, but a relaxation, an understanding. "Where'd you learn?" "My father. He must have been quite the marksman." "He was," a pause, "before he came to America." Harrington's eyes sharpened, his voice lowered. "Poland." "Yes, Gunny. He defected in 1981. For a long moment the old Marine stared at her, as though measuring her against a memory. Finally, his voice softened. "Mika Kowalski." Sarah's breath caught. "You knew my father." Harrington's face revealed nothing, but his eyes said everything. "Berlin, 1979. I was on overwatch for a diplomatic meeting. He was on the adjacent rooftop, Soviet sector, 500 meters. I had him in my crosshairs for 3 hours, and he had me in his." Her heartbeat stuttered. Her father had never told her that story. "Why didn't you take the shot?" she whispered. "Too many civilians, at least that's what my report said." His pale eyes held hers. "Your father was Sparrow program, wasn't he?" Sarah's face stayed neutral. She didn't answer, she didn't need to. The Sparrow program. Whispers she'd grown up hearing but never fully understanding. A Soviet sniper unit so precise, so ruthless they had been ghosts of the Cold War. Her father, once one of their best, had left it all behind, risked everything, for her. Harrington's gaze lingered. "Colonel Mitchell will be observing this afternoon's shoot," he said. "Word is he's scouting talent for something special, the kind of special that doesn't exist on paper." He turned to leave, then paused. "Your father taught you to read wind." "Yes, Gunny, everything he knew." "Then use position 8 on the line. Best vantage for the mirage when the thermals shift this afternoon." And then he walked away, leaving Sarah staring after him. Her father, Berlin, a Marine sniper who might have killed him, a program that had nearly claimed his soul. All of it hidden, all of it surfacing now in whispers. She glanced at her watch. 90 minutes until Colonel Mitchell arrived. 90 minutes until she stepped onto the line they thought she didn't belong on. Her father's voice echoed inside her chest, as sharp as the smell of gunpowder in that Montana workshop. Consistency, discipline, precision, even when no one believes in you, especially then. She placed each round into her ammunition pouch, slow and deliberate, like setting pieces on a chessboard. 40 moves, 40 answers. Nearby, the laughter rose again as Maxwell paraded among his favored shooters. Advice and jokes, brotherhood and ease, the easy confidence of men who had never had to prove themselves twice just to be allowed once. Sarah stood alone, close enough to see them, far enough to be forgotten. But she wasn't forgotten, not anymore, not after today. Because what they didn't know was that their game, their dismissal, their laughter, their cruelty, was about to backfire spectacularly. The range would soon grow silent. And when it did, it would be her trigger pull, her shot group, her father's legacy echoing across the California hills. And no one, not even Staff Sergeant Maxwell, would be able to laugh. Why would she choose the broken rifle? That's what they asked each other, whispering just loud enough for her to hear. At the end of the rack, dusty and ignored, stood an old M4A1 with a hairline crack in its stock. Every other shooter had claimed the newer rifles, polished, zeroed, and already proven. but Sarah's hand lingered on the scarred one. The serial number etched into the steel, 15,847. Her fingers brushed the faint repair line. The weapon had history. She could feel it. "Wouldn't take that one if I were you." She turned. Corporal Jackson stood nearby, arms folded, expression free of mockery. Motor transport patch on his shoulder. A Marine who didn't belong here yet carried himself without shame. "The stock's cracked," he said. "Been repaired, but still, why handicap yourself?" Sarah's voice stayed calm. "Checked it last week. Barrel's good, that's what matters." Jackson studied her. Heard about Maxwell's games, not the first time. Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Games?" "My sister went through artillery school, got the same treatment." His eyes flicked toward Maxwell, who was coaching Daniels like a proud father. Some things in the Corps change slower than others. For the first time that day, Sarah felt something other than cold detachment. A small thread of recognition. Not all of them were blind. Jackson leaned closer. "Word is that rifle belonged to Carlos Hathcock for a while, Germany, classified Op in '85. Her hands froze on the stock. Hathcock, the Marine legend, 93 confirmed kills, the white feather, the kind of marksman whispered about in barrack stories. If this rifle had once been his, then it wasn't broken. It was battle-scarred, proven. "You spotting for anyone today?" Jackson asked. She shook her head. "I've got decent eyes. Won't be perfect, but better than Maxwell's boys. They won't help you." Sarah narrowed her gaze, weighing him. Motives, risks, trust was currency she had little to spare, but his voice carried no mockery, just quiet defiance. "Why?" she asked. Jackson shrugged. "Because I've seen how they treat women who shoot straighter than them, and because my sister told me, sometimes you just need one person in your corner." Silence hung between them, then Sarah nodded once. "I'd appreciate it, Corporal." By 1300, word had spread. The female lance corporal was going to fire the qualification course, ammo games or not. A crowd formed behind the firing line, some curious, some waiting for her humiliation, others quietly hoping she'd prove Maxwell wrong. The fog had burned away, replaced by heat shimmering over the range. Mirage waves bent the air. Wind flags snapped west to east, 8 knots steady, gusting to 12. A challenge even for seasoned shooters. Sarah carried the rifle to lane 8, exactly where Harrington had told her, best view of the shifting thermals. She laid out her pack, her jacket, adjusted the rifle until it felt like an extension of her body. Every movement deliberate, every preparation meticulous. Jackson settled beside her, spotting scope ready. "First string is 600, 10 rounds in 10 minutes. She nodded. Her hands worked steadily, loading her magazine with 5 of her father's hand loads. Each round identical, each round perfect. At the loudspeaker, Maxwell's voice oozed false professionalism. "Attention on the firing line. Colonel Mitchell will be observing this qualification relay. All designated shooters, you have 15 minutes for final prep." His eyes slid toward Sarah, a tiny curl at the corner of his mouth, a warning. Colonel William Mitchell arrived in a staff car, tall and composed, desert camo pressed sharp. The battalion sergeant major at his side, an aide carrying a leather portfolio. He surveyed the firing line like a general inspecting a battlefield. His eyes paused on Sarah, just long enough to say he knew. Maxwell hurried to him, gesturing, no doubt highlighting his top shooters, his star pupil Daniels. But Mitchell's gaze kept drifting. Lane 8, the outlier. On the line, Daniels leaned toward Sarah with a smirk. "Quantico says you qualified expert, Princess. Let's see if you can hit the broadside of a barn without someone else pulling the trigger for you." Sarah said nothing, breathing slow, steady, the way her father taught her, inhale, exhale, rhythm first, bullets later. The range officer's voice cut through the air. "This will be string 1, 600 yards, prone supported, 10 rounds, 10 minutes. Load magazines with 5 rounds only. 20 shooters rose, 20 rifles chambered. Ready on the right, ready on the left, ready on the firing line, commence fire. The line cracked as one. 20 rifles thundered into the air, dust lifting with each concussion. Sarah did not fire. She watched the mirage, heat waves dancing, wind layers shifting. Maxwell's men compensated by holding left edge, letting drift push them center. Textbook doctrine, but the wind wasn't textbook, not today. She read the thermals, the hidden currents twisting beyond the flags, subtle waves bending like rivers in the air. Her finger curled around the trigger. She exhaled, held, fired. The rifle bucked, brass ejected clean. Through her scope, the impact bloomed dead center. Jackson's voice cut low, urgent. Center X hold same wind. She did 9 more times, each shot breaking clean, each impact within an inch of the last. When the command came, cease fire, her chest rose, calm, measured. Targets were pulled, numbers called, lane 8 perfect score, 10 for 10 in the X-ring. The range officer's voice faltered, as though he couldn't quite believe it. A murmur swept the crowd, heads turned, whispers grew. Colonel Mitchell walked forward himself, examining her target through the spotting scope. His face unreadable, but he lingered longer than on any other. Maxwell's jaw clenched. His star Daniels had scored well, 9 black, 7 X-ring, normally a day's best. Not today, not with Sarah on the line. The second string loomed, 800 yards, unsupported, wind stronger now, ball ammo faltering. Even good shooters would string vertically, rounds climbing or dropping unpredictably. Jackson leaned close, wind shifting, 3 minutes left to right, maybe 9 miles an hour. Sarah had already seen it. Through the mirage, she watched the invisible river change course, knew the gusts would hit in waves. She adjusted, waited, squeezed. Shot after shot, her handloads cut the air like truth itself. Each impact tight, each one building a silence that grew heavier with every perfect hit. By the time the second ceasefire echoed, the murmurs had become disbelief. Another perfect string. Maxwell's shooters faltered, scattered groups, excuses ready. But Sarah's target told a story no words could deny. Mitchell's gaze locked on her now, openly, no disguise of disinterest. He turned to Maxwell, speaking words too quiet for the crowd, but whatever he said left Maxwell's face red with contained rage. The third string was next, 900 yards, the hardest, the distance where even experts missed, where wind became chaos, where mirage bent truth into lies. Sarah slid her last handloads into the magazine, every round her father's legacy, every one proof that dignity didn't need an audience to be real. From behind, Gunny Harrington stood silent, arms folded, pale eyes fixed on her lane. He gave the smallest nod, barely there, but enough. She lowered her cheek to the cracked stock, breath steady, vision narrowing. The order rang out. Commence fire. What kind of shooter waits 3 seconds longer than everyone else? That's what Maxwell muttered under his breath, though no one answered. On lane 8, Sarah lay prone, cheek pressed to the cracked stock, finger curled with perfect patience. The air was restless now, gusting, swirling, teasing, the kind of wind that humbled even veterans. Through her scope, the world blurred into heat waves, mirage bending left then right, currents stacking over each other like unseen rivers. Most shooters compensated too late, chasing the wind after it had already shifted. Sarah didn't chase. She anticipated. She saw the change before it reached the target, 3 seconds ahead. The subtle shimmer in the air gave it away. Her father's words echoed inside her, read the air between worlds, not where it is, where it will be. She fired. The recoil kicked, brass spun, Jackson's voice steady in the heat, X-ring, hold that call. 9 more times, she matched the rhythm of the shifting thermals, each shot breaking in the narrow pause between inhale and exhale. each one meeting its mark. By the 10th shot, silence had spread across the line. Rifles still cracked around her, but voices were gone. Whispers were gone. Even the laughter, the constant chorus since dawn, had died. "Cease fire." The command echoed, hollow in the quiet. Targets were pulled, scored. The officer's voice wavered. Lane 8, perfect score. 8 of 10 in the X-ring, all within the black. Not a single miss. A hush rippled over the crowd. Then heads turned. Then came the whispers, but different this time. Not mockery, not dismissal, something else. Something like respect, something like fear. Colonel Mitchell moved forward again, inspecting the target with his own scope. His jaw stayed tight, his expression unreadable, but his eyes lingered, longer even than before. Maxwell stood stiff as stone, fists clenched. Daniels looked at Sarah with something that almost resembled awe. Almost. And then, like clockwork, the range dissolved back into routine. Rifles cleared, brass collected. Men shuffled, muttering excuses about wind, about ammo, but all eyes kept drifting back to her. Lane 8. The outsider. The one they couldn't laugh away anymore. Sarah began breaking down her rifle, motion slow and precise. Cleaning rod, patches, oil. The ritual mattered more than the praise or the stares. Consistency. Discipline. That's what her father taught her. A shadow fell across her. Daniels. His smirk was gone, replaced with something closer to humility. "Where'd you learn to shoot like that?" "Montana," she said simply, running a patch through the bore. "Your old man must have been one hell of a shot." "He was." Daniels hesitated, then leaned closer. "Those were handloads, weren't they?" Sarah didn't answer right away. The silence stretched. Finally, she nodded once. Would you show me sometime, the hand-loading?" Before she could respond, Maxwell appeared, anger radiating off him in waves. His voice dropped low, almost a growl. "Daniel, range police call now." The corporal stiffened, gave Sarah a fleeting look, and hurried off. Maxwell leaned in closer, voice sharp, meant only for her. "Enjoy your little moment, Kowalski, but it doesn't change a damn thing. Women don't belong in combat arms. Not in my scout sniper platoon. Not now, not ever." Sarah continued cleaning the rifle, calm as stone. "Seems like the colonel might disagree." His face darkened. "You think you impressed him with your little show? Let me tell you something about real combat sniping, princess. It's not just punching paper. It's staying motionless for days in freezing rain. It's enduring heat that makes your skin peel. It's looking at a man's face through your scope and pulling the trigger anyway. Can you do that?" Sarah's hands never faltered. Her eyes lifted, steady. "Like in the Korangal Valley. 4 months with Mars. 12 targets during the ambush at Objective Wolverine." Maxwell's face went slack. His mouth opened. No sound came out. She set the rod down, eyes locked on his. "I was there, staff sergeant. Support personnel according to the classified report. I made those shots." Maxwell's color drained. He looked at her as if seeing her for the first time. But before he could recover, Gunny Harrington's voice cut in. "Colonel wants to see both of you, now." The control tower loomed above the range, glass windows reflecting the afternoon sun. Inside, Colonel Mitchell stood with the sergeant major, score sheets spread across the table. An aide shuffled papers in the background. "Staff Sergeant Maxwell, Lance Corporal Kowalski." His tone was measured, cool. Maxwell snapped to attention. "Sir, I can explain the ammunition allocation." "I'm sure you can," Mitchell interrupted, eyes still on the papers. "But first, I'd like to hear Lance Corporal Kowalski's explanation for why she's not on your battalion competition team, given groups like these." Maxwell faltered, his mouth opened then closed. "Sir, she's newly assigned from logistics." Sarah's voice cut in steady. "Transferred from the Marine Corps shooting team at Quantico 3 days ago. Before that, temporarily assigned to Mars in Afghanistan." Mitchell's head lifted, His eyes met hers. Objective Wolverine. Yes, sir. A flicker of recognition, then silence, heavy, purposeful. Finally, Mitchell turned to Maxwell. Did you know about Lance Corporal Kowalski's background? No, sir. Her record only showed basic qualifications. And that justified denying her proper ammunition today. Maxwell stiffened. Sir, match ammo is allocated for designated marksmen only. Support personnel don't rate. Mitchell's gaze hardened. Her transfer orders carried my signature, Staff Sergeant. Those orders specifically designated her as Scout Sniper qualified. Maxwell froze. I never saw those orders, sir. Mitchell glanced to his aide. Sergeant Major, investigate how orders with my signature failed to reach this desk. Aye, sir. Then Mitchell's eyes returned to Sarah. Those were handloads today, weren't they? Yes, sir. Personal competition loads, taught by your father, Mika Kowalski. Sarah blinked. You knew my father. By reputation, his defection caused ripples in certain circles. Mitchell studied her, voice lowering. He was Sparrow Program, one of their best. The room chilled. Maxwell blinked, confusion on his face. Sparrow Program. Mitchell ignored him. The way you read Mirage, your wind calls between gusts, those weren't Marine Corps doctrine, those were Sparrow techniques. My father taught me everything he knew. Mitchell's jaw set, then his voice hardened. Staff Sergeant Maxwell, effective immediately, you are relieved of your duties as Armory NCOIC. Report to the Sergeant Major at 700 for reassignment. Maxwell's face flushed. Sir, with all due respect. That will be all, Staff Sergeant. Dismissed. Maxwell snapped to attention, performed a perfect about-face and marched out, his shoulders rigid, his pride in tatters. The door closed. Silence lingered. Mitchell leaned forward, hands folded. Lance Corporal, what I'm about to discuss is classified, top secret. Harrington closed the blinds. The Sergeant Major locked the door. The room shrank, heavy with secrets. Have you heard of Project Galileo? Sarah shook her head. It's a special task force, assembled to address a specific threat. The collapse of the Soviet Union has scattered nuclear expertise across the globe. Certain men are selling that knowledge to the highest bidder. He paused. Among them is Colonel Alexei Volkov, former KGB, the man who ran the Sparrow program. The name hit like a rifle round. Sarah's breath caught. She had heard it before in whispers, in fragments from her father's late-night mutterings. Mitchell studied her reaction. Volkov trained your father, didn't he? Sarah's face remained neutral. Her silence said enough. We need your skills, Mitchell continued. Your father defected because he believed in freedom. Volkov now threatens that freedom, selling secrets that could shift the balance of power. Harrington's pale eyes cut in. Your father taught you to read the air. He gave you his discipline but not his ruthlessness. That's why the colonel thinks you're right for this. You carry the Sparrow legacy, but you also carry his moral line. Mitchell leaned closer. This isn't just about shooting. It's about preventing nuclear terror. And for that, we need someone who understands Volkov's methods, someone who can anticipate him. Sarah sat still, her breath even, but inside her chest burned. Her father's voice, his lessons, his silence about Berlin, his refusal to speak of the man who had once commanded him. Now it all fit, now it all led here. Are you recruiting me, sir? Mitchell's gaze sharpened. I'm offering you the chance to stop Volkov before he creates a new generation of Sparrows, before his legacy destroys what your father gave his life for. Sarah's voice came quiet. I'm interested, sir. Mitchell's expression didn't change, but for the first time there was satisfaction in his eyes. Report tomorrow, 800, Building 87. Your new assignment begins then. Why was the building windowless? That was Sarah's first thought when she arrived at Building 87, tucked at the far edge of Camp Pendleton, away from the hum of training ranges and the noise of motor pools. Concrete, featureless, the kind of place that didn't exist on maps. The guard at the door checked her orders twice before scanning her ID. Then another Marine escorted her through steel doors, past empty hallways, deeper underground. It didn't smell like a barracks or an armory, it smelled like nothing, sterile, air scrubbed of history. At the final door, her escort stopped. "This is it. Good luck, Lance Corporal." The door opened. Inside, 5 people sat around a table, not recruits, not standard Marines, something else. Colonel Mitchell stood at the head, hands clasped behind his back. "Team, this is Lance Corporal Sarah Kowalski. Effective today, she's part of Project Galileo." The words fell heavy, some eyebrows lifted, others tightened. Sarah's gaze swept the room. The first was Captain Alina Torres, intelligence officer. Sharp features, hair pinned tight, eyes calculating. She didn't hide her skepticism. Her pen tapped against a folder labeled classified. Next, Sergeant First Class Darren Cole, Army Ranger, broad shoulders, scar down his cheek. He leaned back in his chair with arms crossed, expression unimpressed. Beside him, Lieutenant Marcus Hale, Navy pilot, young, restless energy. He nodded politely, but his eyes flickered with doubt. And then at the far end sat someone she recognized. Gunnery Sergeant Harrington, the old Marine, silent, watching. Mitchell's voice cut steady. "Galileo is an interbranch task force. No record, no insignia. Officially, you don't exist. Your mission: track and neutralize Colonel Alexei Volkov before he proliferates nuclear secrets. He has networks across Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. He also has his own shooters, trained in Sparrow doctrine." The word Sparrow lingered like a shadow. Sarah felt it coil around her chest. Mitchell continued, "Volkov's operatives will not fight conventionally. They will stalk. They will hide. They will shoot without hesitation. The only way to counter them is to think like them." He let that hang before turning to Sarah. "Which is why she's here." The silence was immediate. Captain Torres spoke first. "Sir, with respect, she's a Lance Corporal. She doesn't have clearance for this level of operation." Mitchell's gaze was steel. "She does now." Sergeant Cole scoffed. "You're telling me she's going to train us, an E3? With all due respect, sir, I've been in combat zones since Baghdad. I've seen real shooters. What can she teach me?" Sarah's throat tightened. The room pressed in. Every gaze cut her down before she could stand. But then Harrington's voice came, calm, gravelly. "She can teach you things your doctrine never will, because she was raised in it, because she's the daughter of Mika Kowalski." The name froze them. Tor's pen stopped tapping. Hale sat straighter. Even Cole's jaw shifted. Mitchell nodded. "She carries Sparrow techniques, but unlike Volkov, she carries a conscience. That balance is what this team needs." For a moment, Sarah felt the weight of the room shift. Doubt didn't vanish, but silence gave her space. Mitchell's orders flowed next. Intelligence briefs, reconnaissance strategies, travel cover identities. It was overwhelming, yet her mind latched onto each detail, discipline threading through her like wire. When the meeting broke, Torres stayed behind, eyes on Sarah. "You'll have to earn this, faster than anyone else here. They won't forgive mistakes." Sarah met her gaze. "I don't plan on making any." Torres' eyebrow arched, but she said nothing more. Training began the next morning at 500. It wasn't like the rifle range. It wasn't even like Quantico. This was closer to survival school, urban stalking, rural concealment, cross-branch tactics. Every drill designed to test limits. Sarah found herself paired with Cole during the first exercise. Urban movement, neutralizing a target without detection. He didn't hide his skepticism. "Try to keep up, princess." She did more than keep up. She moved quieter, blended faster, anticipated angles he missed. By the time they cornered the mock target in an abandoned warehouse, it was her shot that rang out first. Clean. Controlled. Cole said nothing, just stared, then walked off. The days bled together. Concealment drills in desert scrub. Observation exercises in crowded streets designed by role players. Sniper counter-sniper duels in forests where every branch crack betrayed a shooter. Each time Sarah held her own, sometimes better, sometimes worse, but never broken. What gnawed at her wasn't the training. It was the shadow of Volkov, the man Mitchell spoke of in clipped tones. The man Harrington seemed to know but never named aloud. The man her father had never spoken of, yet who lingered in every silence her childhood carried. At night, alone in her barracks room, she replayed her father's voice. "Don't copy me. Don't become me. Learn from me, then be better." Was she breaking that promise by stepping into Galileo, or was she fulfilling it? One night, as she cleaned her rifle in the dim light, Hale appeared at her door. The young pilot leaned awkwardly against the frame. "You ever think about what happens if we fail?" Sarah paused. "Every day." "I mean," he hesitated, "it's not just another mission. If Volkov moves nuclear material, it's millions of lives, not just ours." Sarah looked at him. His eyes carried fear but also honesty. He wasn't mocking her. He was admitting what no one else dared say. "Yes," she said quietly, "that's why I can't afford to miss." Hale nodded, lingering like he wanted to say more, then left. Weeks passed. Drills hardened. Doubts softened, though never disappeared. By the end of the month, Sarah noticed Cole no longer called her princess. He still didn't speak much, but when he did, it was to ask when calls. The turning point came during a long-range exercise in the desert. Two-man teams, targets hidden across a canyon. Sarah and Jackson paired up again. They moved with patience, setting up at the ridge line. Heat shimmered, mirage twisted, wind curled through gullies. Jackson whispered, "They're expecting standard holds, 3 minutes left, but I think the canyon creating a funnel." Sarah adjusted her scope. Mirage confirmed it. He was right. The canyon forced the wind stronger at mid-range, weaker at the target, a trap for anyone who trusted the flags alone. She broke the shot. The round cut dead center. Behind them, Cole cursed. His round had drifted feet off mark. When scores were tallied, Sarah's string led the field. For the first time, there was no laughter, no whispers, only silence, respectful silence. That night, Mitchell addressed them all. "You're not ready yet, but you're closer. Volkov is moving. We've confirmed his next location. Eastern Europe, a transfer meeting. High stakes." He looked around the room. His gaze landed on Sarah last. "You'll deploy in 10 days. And you need to understand this isn't just a mission, it's personal. For some of you, it's about proving yourselves. For others, it's about redemption. But for her—" His voice lowered. "For her, it's about finishing what her father began." Sarah's chest tightened. She said nothing, but her silence spoke everything. When the team broke, Harrington pulled her aside. His pale eyes burned. "There's something you should know, something about Volkov, something your father never told you." Sarah's breath caught. "What is it?" Harrington's voice came quiet. "Volkov was just your father's commander. He was the man who ordered his first kill. A child, 11 years old, that was the Sparrow initiation." Her blood froze, her chest ached. "And your father," Harrington continued, "disobeyed. He spared the boy. Volkov never forgave him, that's why he defected." Sarah's world tilted. Memories of her father's silence, his refusal to tell stories, his restless nights, it all made sense now. Harrington's voice was gravel. "If you face Volkov, understand this. To him, you are unfinished business." The words lingered like a shadow, heavy, final. Sarah lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling. Her father's ghost pressed against her chest. Unfinished business. The countdown to deployment had begun. Why did the streets feel like they were watching her? It wasn't paranoia. Not exactly. But Sarah felt it in the cracks between cobblestones, in the shadows that lingered longer than they should, in the way silence seemed to stretch just a little too far. Eastern Europe, a border city that looked gray even in daylight. Concrete high-rises scarred by decades of politics, graffiti scrawled in half a dozen languages, street vendors selling fruit beside rusted cars that should have been scrapped years ago. Project Galileo had arrived under civilian cover. Tourists, businessmen, aid workers. On paper, they were nothing more than temporary shadows themselves. But in reality, they were here to intercept Volkov's network. Colonel Mitchell's words echoed from the last briefing. Volkov doesn't meet anyone without layers. Couriers, cutouts, ghosts. Find the chain, break it, and maybe you get close enough to see his shadow. Sarah walked with Hale along a crowded market street, blending in. Civilian jackets, worn shoes, hair tied back. She carried no rifle, no obvious weapon. Just a small concealed pistol and a bag that looked like it held groceries but instead carried encrypted comms. Hale tried to look casual, but his eyes darted too often. She touched his arm lightly, steadying. Blend, don't scan. He exhaled, still getting used to groundside ops. Sarah gave a faint smile. Don't think of it as scanning. Think of it as listening with your eyes. Hale nodded, trying again. This time his gaze softened, his body language looser, less military, more invisible. At the cafe 2 blocks down, Tors and Cole sat pretending to argue over paperwork, eyes hidden behind sunglasses. Jackson was across the street, hunched with a newspaper, though his spotting scope was disassembled inside it. Harrington, as always, was nowhere obvious, which meant he was watching from somewhere perfect. The signal came through a discreet buzz on Sarah's comms. Tor's voice, calm and clipped. Target courier confirmed, brown coat, black satchel moving west on River Street, no direct intercept, track only. Sarah's pulse steadied, her breathing slowed, training wrapped around instinct like a second skin. She and Hale fell in behind the courier, 20 meters, casual distance. He walked with practiced pace, not too fast, not too slow. The satchel never left his grip. Sarah studied his gait, his shoulders, his constant glance to reflections in shop windows. Sparrow training. He was checking tails. She nudged Hale, eyes low, don't match his rhythm. Hale nodded, adjusting his steps. The courier crossed an intersection. Cole's voice murmured over comms. 2 men trailing him also, not ours, possible rival operatives. Tors added quickly, hold position, do not compromise. Sarah's jaw tightened. Rival operatives meant competition, another intelligence service. CIA, MI6, or worse, another of Volkov's networks checking their own man. The courier ducked into a narrow alley. The rival pair followed. Sarah's gut twisted. Instinct screamed. She keyed her mic. We're going to lose him in there. Tors negative, hold. But Sarah was already moving. She cut into the alley, Hale on her heels. Narrow brick walls, trash bins, laundry lines, the courier ahead walking faster now, sensing the press of pursuit. Behind him, the 2 rivals closing in. Then too sudden to stop, the courier spun, a pistol in his hand. The rivals froze, weapons came up, the standoff cracked the air like glass. Sarah pulled Hale back into a recessed doorway, heart pounding. The courier shouted something in Russian. The rivals barked in another tongue. Words clashed sharp, like knives scraping metal. 1 second of silence, then fire exploded. Gunshots ripped down the alley, deafening, violent. The courier dropped instantly, satchel skidding across cobblestones. 1 rival went down, the other lunged for the bag. Sarah moved, no hesitation. She stepped from the doorway, pistol drawn. 1 shot, controlled, clean. The rival collapsed before his hand touched the satchel. Smoke hung in the alley, echoes rolled away. Hale's breath came ragged beside her. "Jesus," he whispered. Sarah's voice was flat. "Secure the satchel." He grabbed it, retreating into the shadows. Tor's voice crackled in her ear, urgent. "Report." "Courier down," Sarah said, eyes scanning. "Rivals neutralized, satchel secure." A pause, then Tor's voice sharper. "Kowalski, that was a direct engagement. You were ordered to hold." Sarah didn't flinch. Orders would have lost the satchel. Silence answered her. Then Mitchell himself came over comms. His tone carried no anger, just weight. "Exfil to Rally Point Bravo, now." They moved fast, cutting through back streets, ditching alleys, blending into crowds. Hale clutched the satchel like lifeblood. Sarah scanned constantly, the world narrowing to shadows and exits. At the rally point, an abandoned tram depot, the team converged. Tor's face was tight with frustration. Cole stared hard at Sarah, but there was no mockery now, just challenge. Mitchell arrived minutes later, flown in by unmarked helo. He strode into the depot, eyes on the satchel. Hale handed it over. Mitchell opened it. Inside, folders, ledgers, names, numbers, handwritten, coded. He flipped a page, scanning. His jaw tightened. "This isn't financial." He held up the ledger. "It's personnel, Sparrow operatives, active." The word froze the air. Sarah's chest clenched. Sparrow, her father's ghosts, the very thing he had abandoned, now written in black ink. Names alive, breathing. Cole muttered, "So they're not just history." Mitchell's eyes cut to Sarah. "No, and according to this," he tapped the page, "one of them is here in this city." The silence burned. Every pair of eyes shifted towards Sarah as if she should already know. She met Mitchell's gaze, voice low. "Volkov keeps them close." Mitchell nodded slowly. "Then understand this. If one of these sparrows is operating here, it means Volkov is closer than we thought." Sarah swallowed. Her father's lessons felt heavier now than any rifle. His silence about Volkov, his refusal to speak of sparrow initiation, his shadow at every step. But one thought drowned the noise. If sparrows were alive, then someone trained under the same doctrine she had inherited. Someone who might shoot like her. Someone who might think like her. Someone who might already know her face. The team broke into planning, patterns of movement, safe houses, how to track a sparrow without becoming prey. Tors laid out surveillance grids. Cole suggested choke points. Hale volunteered aerial recon. But Sarah barely heard them. Her eyes drifted to the ledger in Mitchell's hands. One name circled, written in careful Cyrillic. Her blood ran cold. She recognized it. Not from her training, not from Quantico, from childhood, from whispers in her father's nightmares. The name of the boy her father had spared, the child Volkov had chosen for initiation. Alive. Now a sparrow. And he was here. Her breath faltered, chest tightening, the world blurred around her. Harrington's pale eyes caught hers across the table. He knew, he'd always known. But he gave no words, only the smallest nod. Sarah steadied her breath, forcing calm. She whispered to herself, words only she could hear. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts. The mission had shifted. This wasn't about Volkov anymore. This was about unfinished blood. Why did the city feel quieter at night? It was. The streets still carried footsteps, muffled conversations, the distant growl of trams. But for Sarah, the silence was heavier, as if something unseen moved beneath the noise. The ledger page with the circled name burned in her mind. Yuri Petrov, 11 years old when her father had spared him. Now a man, a sparrow. She lay prone on a rooftop 2 blocks from the train yard, eyes fixed through her scope. Below, the city moved. Cigarette smoke curled from doorways. A dog barked in the distance. But Sarah wasn't watching the living. She was watching for shadows. Jackson's voice crackled softly in her earpiece. Sector 2 clear, no movement. Tors followed from the safe house. We've mapped 3 possible meet sites, the rail yard, the East Hotel, and the old cathedral. Sparrow could use any. We'll need eyes on all. Sarah whispered back, copy. Her finger brushed the rifle trigger guard. Not pressure, just contact, reassurance. But her chest ached. This wasn't just a target. This was the boy her father couldn't kill. She remembered the way her father would wake in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, whispering in Polish, voice cracked with guilt. She hadn't understood then. Now she did. He spared Yuri, and now Yuri had become everything he feared. A shadow shifted near the rail yard gates. Sarah's eyes snapped through the scope. A man in a long coat, moving differently, purposeful but detached. Not a local, not a tourist, something else. She tracked him, slow, steady, breath shallow. Contact, rail yard entrance, possible Sparrow. Hale's voice answered, clipped. I see him, angle's bad, can't confirm. The man paused, lit a cigarette. The flare of the match glowed red against his face. For an instant Sarah saw him clearly. And her blood froze. It was him, older, hardened but unmistakable, Yuri Petrov. Her hands tightened, breath caught, she whispered, confirmed, it's him. The comms went silent. Everyone understood the weight. Mitchell's voice finally cut through. Do not engage. Repeat, do not engage. Track only. Sarah swallowed. The words fought inside her chest. Track only. But her father's ghost screamed louder. He should have ended it then. She steadied her breath, fighting the tremor in her chest. The rifle stayed still. Her finger never pressed the trigger, but her heart begged to. Yuri moved into the rail yard, vanishing between rusted freight cars. Cole's voice murmured over comms, lost him. Sarah adjusted, scanning. Shadows bent, stretched, no movement. And then, her scope caught a glint, high across the yard, a rooftop. Her stomach dropped. Sniper, she hissed. Counter position, west building. The comms lit instantly. Tours, everyone hold cover. Hale breaking left, 2 exposed. Cole, where the hell? A shot cracked. Echo rolled. Hale dove just in time. Concrete shattered inches from where his head had been. Sarah's breath sharpened. This wasn't random, this was measured, this was Sparrow work. Her scope found the muzzle flash. Faint, controlled, a shooter who knew patience. West rooftop, 3 stories, she called. She lined up her crosshairs. The rooftop window flickered again. She held her breath, waited for the exhale. But just as she broke the shot, the target vanished. Her bullet hit empty glass. Another crack split the night. A round tore through the bricks beside her. Dust stung her eyes. She rolled, heart pounding. He was countering her, shot for shot. Not just Sparrow, a mirror. Her pulse hammered. She remembered Harrington's warning. To Volkov, you are unfinished business. Now Yuri was proving it. Jackson's voice came low. Sarah, he's baiting you. She steadied, breath ragged. I know. The rail yard became a chessboard, every shadow a possible piece, every rooftop a trap. Yuri was moving her, forcing her hand. Tor's voice snapped. We need to exfil, 2 exposed. Mitchell countered, firm. Negative. This is the contact we came for, hold positions. Sarah's eyes scanned, fast but controlled. She thought like a sparrow. Where would she go? Where would she fire? Then she saw it, not the rooftop, the reflection, a sliver of glass angled in a window across the street. Her blood chilled. He wasn't shooting from the rooftop anymore. He was already gone, already watching from somewhere else. She whispered, he's hunting us. And then the comms went dead. Static, nothing else. The silence pressed against her chest like a weight. She was alone now. Alone, facing a ghost her father couldn't kill. Her finger trembled near the trigger, breath sharp, eyes burning. Somewhere out there, Yuri Petrov was waiting. And the next shot might not miss. Why did the silence feel louder than the gunfire? Sarah crouched against the rooftop ledge, breath sharp, dust in her teeth. The comms were gone, cut clean, not scrambled. A deliberate kill. Yuri wanted her isolated. Her rifle lay steady across the parapet, but every instinct screamed that the weapon alone wouldn't save her. This wasn't just a duel of bullets. It was a duel of minds. And he knew her, not personally, but through her father, through the same doctrine, through the same ghosts. She closed her eyes for one heartbeat, hearing her father's voice in memory. Don't play where the enemy points. Play where he thinks you won't dare. Her eyes snapped open. She pulled back from the parapet, crawling low. Dust scraped against her elbows. She shifted 3 meters left, keeping below the skyline. Slowly, she raised her scope again. Nothing. The rooftop where she'd first seen Yuri's flash was empty. The alley reflection gone. He was moving constantly, reading her rhythm. Think, she whispered, think like him. Yuri wouldn't linger. He'd reposition. He'd stalk the stalker, and if he was true Sparrow, he'd already anticipated her counter. Her chest tightened. She realized it wasn't just tactics, it was legacy. This was her father's unfinished shadow, alive in another man. A faint scrape echoed from across the street, barely audible, a shoe against gravel. Her scope caught the faintest silhouette moving along a window frame, careful, methodical. Her heart hammered, she steadied, exhale, half-trigger squeeze. The silhouette vanished before she fired. And then a shot cracked. The parapet stone an inch from her head exploded, shards slicing her cheek. She rolled back, heart slamming. He wasn't missing by accident. He was writing warnings in stone, close enough to touch her nerve, far enough to let her live. It wasn't just a duel, it was a message. Your father spared me, should I spare you? Her hands shook just once, she forced them still. She whispered under her breath, not tonight. Sliding back, she adjusted positions again, crawling toward the access hatch. The stairwell was dark, damp, smelling of rust. Her boots found the steps quiet, each one careful. But halfway down, her stomach dropped. The stairwell door at the bottom was ajar. Her pulse sharpened. He'd been here, maybe still was. She drew her sidearm, the weight of it cold in her grip. Rifle slung, pistol ready. Every corner a trap, every shadow a possibility. She reached the door, slowly pushed it with her boot. It creaked. The alley beyond was empty, silent. She stepped out, shoulders tight, pistol raised. A voice drifted through the night, low, calm, in Russian. Your father hesitated too. Sarah froze. The accent was thicker now, deeper with age, but the words cut like glass. Yuri. Her throat dried. She turned slowly, pistol aimed into the darkness. I know you, he said again, closer this time. You have his eyes, his control, but will you fail as he did? Her voice came steady, though inside her chest quaked. He didn't fail, he chose. A laugh cold, echoing off brick, impossible to locate. He chose weakness, mercy. Do you know what that mercy made me? Her hands tightened. She knew he was proof. Yuri's voice slid closer, circling. He spared me. Volkov took me, raised me as his own, gave me what your father would not, the kill, the power. Do you know what the Sparrow initiation feels like, little one? Her stomach twisted. She forced her voice level. I know what it cost him to walk away from it. Silence stretched, heavy. Then Yuri whispered, closer than before. And I know what it gave me to embrace it. A bottle clinked in the alley. Reflex pulled her pistol toward the sound. Nothing there, just trash. The shot came from the opposite side. The wall behind her cracked, showering dust. She spun, firing back. One round, two. Sparks burst against brick, empty space. He was already gone. A cat-and-mouse rhythm pulsed through the alleys. Her heart beat in time with the silence, each step calculated, each breath sharp. Then another voice broke the silence, English, clipped, commanding. Sarah, copy. Kowalski, do you copy? Her comms hissed alive again. Mitchell. She whispered urgently. He's here, Yuri, he has me boxed in. Static, then Cole's voice. Hold, we're moving toward your sector. No, she hissed. He wants that, he's drawing you in, stay back. Another laugh echoed, taunting. Good girl, you think like me. Her blood chilled. Yuri's voice, calm as steel. But can you pull the trigger where your father could not? For one heartbeat, Sarah thought she saw him, shadow against shadow, 30 yards ahead, pistol low, posture calm. Not aiming, just waiting. Her breath faltered, her finger hovered. The memory of her father's voice surged. Don't become me. But Mitchell's voice thundered in her ear. Take the shot. And the alley erupted with gunfire. Not hers, his. She dove behind a dumpster, bullets sparking off metal. Her cheek burned where stone had already cut her. The pistol felt small in her hand. Too small. Yuri's laughter rang again, fading into the dark. Not tonight, little sparrow, not tonight. Then silence. When the team finally reached her, she was crouched against the wall, blood on her cheek, pistol in her lap, eyes locked on the empty alley. Harrington knelt beside her, voice quiet. He wanted you to feel it, the choice your father faced. Her chest heaved, her voice cracked. He's not finished, he won't stop. Harrington's pale eyes met hers. No, because to him, you're not just another target. You're the one who decides whether your father's mercy was weakness or strength. Sarah swallowed, eyes burning. She whispered, and next time he won't be the one who walks away. The alley held no answers, only echoes. But Sarah knew one truth now. The final confrontation wasn't about a mission, or Volkov, or Sparrow doctrine. It was about blood. And unfinished ghosts. Why did it feel like the city itself was holding its breath? The rail yard was empty now. The team had pulled back, set surveillance on 3 possible exits. Tors monitored radio chatter. Cole kept eyes on the cathedral spires. Hale circled overhead in a rented civilian helo, reporting rooftops. But Sarah waited. She was alone in the abandoned factory east of the tracks. A skeleton of steel and rust, its windows shattered, its roof sagging. She knew Yuri would come here. She felt it. Not because of intel, not because of maps, because of instinct. Because if she were him, this is where she'd draw her prey. Her rifle rested across a crate. Her pistol sat ready at her thigh. And in her chest, 2 voices warred her father's warning not to become him, and Mitchell's command to do what was necessary. She whispered into the silence, "What are you waiting for, Yuri?" The answer came as softly as the creak of old steel. A shadow detached itself from the far catwalk. He stepped into the light, bleeding through broken windows. Yuri Petrov, older now but sharp-eyed, calm. The satchel from earlier was gone. He carried only a suppressed rifle, slung low, casual, as if the weapon wasn't the point. "You came alone," he said. His voice carried across the empty factory like a whisper on steel. "So did you," she answered. A smile touched his lips. "We both knew this was between us. The others are noise." Sarah didn't move. She kept her breathing steady. It didn't have to be this way. He tilted his head, studying her. "Ah, mercy, your father's ghost still speaks through you." Her chest tightened. "He spared you, and you became this." "And what are you?" His eyes narrowed. "Are you mercy, or are you consequence?" The words struck deep, because she didn't know, not yet. He shifted, stepping down from the catwalk, boots echoing on concrete. Not rushing, not threatening, just circling. "I remember his eyes," Yuri continued. "The night Volkov gave me the rifle, the order, the child in the dirt. He would not fire, he left me to carry the burden instead." Sarah's breath caught. "You pulled the trigger." Yuri's gaze hardened. "Yes, and that is why I lived. Because Volkov knew I would not hesitate again. Your father abandoned me to this fate." Sarah's hand tightened on the rifle stock. "He saved you." He shook his head. "No, he condemned me." The silence between them weighed heavier than steel. Then in one smooth motion, Yuri unslung his rifle and set it on the ground. He spread his hands. "Your choice, little sparrow. Will you do what he could not? Will you end this ghost?" Her heart pounded. Every nerve screamed to raise her rifle, to end him, to finish what her father started. But another part of her, another part whispered of dignity, of walking away. Her voice came quiet. "You killed because Volkov told you to. You live because my father chose not to. Every breath you take is borrowed from him, and now from me." Yuri's eyes flickered. For a moment, just a moment, doubt touched his face. Then the echo of boots broke the silence. Colonel Mitchell entered with Cole and Torres at his back, weapons raised. Harrington slipped in last, his pale eyes locked on Yuri. "Stand down," Mitchell ordered. "He's coming with us." But Yuri's smile returned, cold, knowing. "No, I'm not." His hand twitched toward his belt. Not a weapon, a detonator. Sarah's breath snapped. She moved before anyone else. Rifle up, scope clear, finger steady. One exhale, one trigger press. The shot cracked like thunder. Yuri staggered. The detonator clattered to the floor. He fell to his knees, eyes locking on hers one last time. A whisper fatting, "So you chose." Then silence. The factory went still. The city seemed to exhale. Mitchell moved forward, kicking the detonator away, verifying the threat was neutralized. Cole swore under his breath. Torres exhaled sharp relief. But Sarah just stood there, rifle heavy in her hands. Harrington's voice came low, almost gentle. "You didn't hesitate." Her eyes burned. "I don't know if that makes me stronger or just the same as him." Harrington studied her, then shook his head. "No, he fired because he was ordered. You fired because you chose. That's the difference. And that's the dignity your father carried, even in silence." Mitchell's voice cut in, commanding as ever. "Pack it up. Galileo moves to extraction in 20. Volkov is still out there. This was only his shadow." The team began moving, gathering gear, clearing the space. But Sarah lingered. She looked down at Yuri's still form. A man her father had spared. A boy who had become everything her father feared. Her throat tightened. For all his darkness, for all the blood he had spilled, she couldn't help but feel the faintest ache. Because this was what mercy had grown into, and mercy was what she had ended. She closed her eyes, whispered only to herself. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts. And then she turned, walked away. The factory swallowed the silence behind her. But the echo of that single shot would follow her forever.